Auckland Council has voted in favour of Phil Goff's controversial bed tax. As we heard when the program began just over an hour ago, the Mayor has pushed the tax, saying the Council cannot keep burdening ratepayers with high rate increases to pay for the city's infrastructure needs. He says the targeted rate would be fairer for ratepayers, as it would cover half the $26 million of the cost of promotion and marketing budget for the Council's tourism arm, ATEED. Now, Rachel Shadbolt is the General Manager of Accommodation for Hospitality New Zealand. She joins us now live on the phone. Are you there, Rachel?
I am.
Nice to talk to you. What do you make of this vote by the Auckland Council?
Oh, devastated. Actually devastated on behalf of my operators up in Auckland who can't afford this. Right.
How do you know they can't afford it?
Well, would you like to be waking up on the 1st of July and discover that you've got $20,000 extra rates that you have to pay to council?
And who? So it's not $20,000 each, is it? So where's the figure of $20,000 come from? Who? Give me an example of somebody who would be paying that extra.
Okay, so we've got an inner city motel with a capital value of $3.6 million. So that's where the targeted rate's on. It's on the capital value. They're facing a targeted rate bill of around $30,000, and that's additional to the $24,000 they already pay in commercial rates. So they're facing 125% rates increase, which is a lot different to the 2.5 that Mayor Goff seems to be promising everyone.
Well, the 2.5 is for domestic rates, isn't it? So what do you think this will mean for that? So it's rated on the value, commercial value?
Yeah, it's rated on the capital value.
Capital value, sorry.
Building. Yeah.
Right. So what will it mean for a business like that? They'll simply pass it on, won't they?
Well, they can't. You can't pass on fixed costs. Very, very difficult thing to do, and they certainly can't pass it on as a surcharge, which is what the council has been asserting that you can do. We'd be treading a very fine line with the Fair Trading Act and the Commerce Act if we were doing that.
Right. So what will happen, do you think?
They'll probably have to absorb, and they'll probably certainly have to look at all of their other costs and start to think about where they can actually save some costs to actually be able to pay the targeted rate. Some have told me that they may even have to take loans to service it, which is certainly not what you'd want to see happening.
Are you saying there shouldn't be some form of bed tax? There shouldn't be some form of levy on tourists who get to use Auckland infrastructure effectively for free? I guess they're paying GST, but that's the totality of their contribution, right?
I think if this was a bed tax discussion, we probably wouldn't be quite as incandescent about it. This is a targeted rate discussion. A bed tax can be charged directly to the person sleeping in the bed, or a visitor levy, one of those things. But a targeted rate often doesn't go anywhere near the visitor, because a targeted rate is paid by the person who owns the building and pays the rates. So for hotels, quite often it's the building owner. For moteliers, unfortunately, it is the moteliers, so they will be the ones most impacted.
Look, we've got a fascinating email from a listener, Professor Jürgen Noth, who's Department of Marketing at the University of Otago, down in Dunedin, obviously. And he says the bed tax should not be treated as an isolated issue, that there is a thin edge of the wedge here, and that we need to have a debate about how to manage the dock estate, our domains, our beaches, our riverbanks, from which we are increasingly displaced. In other words, and actually Nona and I were discussing this, about 45 minutes ago, tourism is now the biggest foreign exchange earner for this country, and dairy is second. And it provides an enormous amount of jobs. But there is a cost, and there has been, this email suggests, an almost reckless disregard of the cost and impact of the increasing number of tourists coming to New Zealand, as well as the benefits. How do we manage that?
So he was suggesting that a bed tax for a visitor levy was something that should be considered?
Well, some form of levy,
right,
nationwide, something that says, okay, as well as the direct income from the money these tourists spend, we are also going to offset the cost to our conservation state, to our rivers, to our beaches, to our roads, to, through some form of levy. Is there anything you would be prepared to accept?
Oh, look, we are prepared to have very open conversations about fair and equitable contribution to the tourism industry. The proposal Auckland's put up is not fair and equitable, because it's only the commercial accommodation sector being pinged for it. A visitor levy discussion is something that we would like to have at a national level, even if it's just to have the discussion completely and decide whether we're going for it one way or the other. I think he's right with the thin edge of the wedge, particularly with this targeted rate. You can't tell me other councils around the country aren't watching Auckland with interest and thinking, oh, I wonder if that's a good idea. We'd urge them to think that it's not.
Is there a model overseas that you like? Because often you pay, at a hotel, you pay some kind of levy or some kind of extra, don't you? Is there anything that you think is working when you travel?
Look, overseas they do have the bed taxes and they do have the visitor levies. I guess a bed tax comes back to it again that it's only the commercial accommodation providers who end up collecting that rate, and where are the other people in tourism collecting or contributing. A visitor levy, which is obviously more like a border levy, is probably more equitable in that everybody contributes. But look, we just want to have a really good national discussion about it. Otherwise we're going to end up having to have a million, targeted rate discussions with various councils, and it's quite onerous.
How would that discussion be led?
Look, it has to absolutely come from the top, and it would have to be a working party of like-minded tourism individuals.
So you're not opposed to that sort of discussion per se? You would participate in it? Okay, so that,
yep.
In fact, are you calling for it?
Well, we did ask for it in our submission to the Auckland Council, and we have been making similar noises at central government level as well.
Have you talked to Paula Bennett, Minister Bennett?
It has been noted, yes.
Okay, and the previous tourism minister was, of course, John Key. How did you go in discussions with him?
I think we were getting a little bit warmer with John Key. He certainly didn't seem to be opposed to it. Minister Bennett just probably hasn't really made a decision as yet, and certainly not this side of the elections.
Rachel Shadbolt, who is the Accommodation General Manager for Hospitality New Zealand, thank you so much for joining us live. So, not opposed to some kind of levy per se, but certainly opposed to what the Auckland Council have voted for this afternoon.